Hello, everyone. It feels like it has been forever since I have seen your names on my webinar list. I have missed you all so much. I'll also say you can't see me. GoToWebinar seems to be having a camera issue, and too bad for you all because I did my hair and makeup, so you are really missing out. My cutoff for saying Happy New Year lands between 5 and 7 business days post January 1. So I will simply wish you all a happy Wednesday and thank you all for being here for our first Ancira Automotive webinar of 2023. My name is Erin Zabarak. I'll be your host today. I've been in automotive for a whopping 27 years, and I know based on that picture, you would be wondering, how is that even possible? Well, I started when I was 15 years old as a file clerk, organizing data even way back then. So today's webinar hits me right in all the feels. It's been too long also since I've been joined by the Batman to my Robin, the peanut butter to my chocolate. Colleen Harris, Ancira's head of business intelligence and reporting, is here. More importantly, she is our Google Whisperer, and I am excited she's here to whip us all into shape for 2023. Colleen, thank you for being here.
Always, it's my favorite place to be.
Awesome. Okay, so we were together last week actually at a 20 group where you talked all things GA4. It was a great time. And we're going to be together next week in Dallas during NADA. I want to pull up a quick poll while I run through some of the logistics. Who is going to NADA? Let us know. I want to see you. If you're going, I want to reach out. If you're not, we will miss you very much. And let's see what we say. But while we're doing that, let's see, what have I forgotten to tell you? We are recording today's webinar. The deck is available in the handout section of that GoToWebinar toolbar. As always, we want you to ask your questions along the way, especially related to GA4. I know you're going to have some. You're going to see that question section in your toolbar. Let us know what you want to know. I will interrupt throughout the presentation to address some of those questions. I may have to take some of the more detailed ones offline, but we want to make sure we have time for everything Colleen has put together. All right, I'm going to close this poll. Let's see what we say. Yeah, you know, this is what we're hearing. A lot of you are not going to make it. Like I said, we will miss you. But for those of you who are, I'm going to reach out. I'm going to give you some scoop at the end about how you can reach out to us. So let's see, what else? Is that all the details? Recording questions? Yes. Okay, so let's get started. The topic today is data hygiene, data cleanup. Now is the perfect time to start fresh, clean out some of those data closets. Colleen is here to take us through. So go ahead and run us through the agenda. What are you going to talk about today?
Yeah, so we've got a couple of big buckets here to be looking at. First and foremost, because it wouldn't be a Google Whisperer webinar if I wasn't reminding everybody about GA4, we're going to talk everything GA4, new updates, and what you should be particularly thinking about now in preparation for July 1st. Because regardless of whether or not we want the change to happen, it's happening July 1st, and we all need to get prepared for it. Then we're going to take a little bit of a step back and just talk about our digital data health. There's a lot of talk and buzzwords about customer data and customer data platforms, but we're going to take it back a level and just break it down for what that is, what that isn't. And before you start thinking about any of those pieces, how to get your own customer data in order. And then finally, we're going to talk all things Google Business Profile, because it would not be a webinar if Google had made a bunch of random, not helpful changes to the Google Business Profile recently. So we're going to talk about all those, how to get around them, how to work through that, and how to get the most out of that entity.
Awesome.
All right, GA4. Like I said, it's happening July 1st, whether or not we want it to happen. Whether or not you like it, whether or not you appreciate it, whether or not you want to use it, it's going to happen. So we want to make sure we're there and prepared. If you've been here, and all my friends who have been here before, you know Erin and I will preach this one until the end of time. You should be having your own analytics account that you manage for the dealership. All of the website providers are all going to use Google Analytics 2 for their own reporting solutions. You should have a second one that is for yours. That means that if you ever change websites, if you ever change vendors, you get still ownership of all of your data. And there is a way to make sure your GA4 is installed twice, so like yours and the website provider, without having any impact to speed. Google gives you that code already. Take advantage of it. So right now, for anybody who has at least maybe got the GA4 installed, it's kind of like I have it installed, what do I need to do with it now? And so we want to talk about just the questions you should be talking with your vendors. Because the thing about GA4 and getting it set up is that you will get the most out of it when you are an active partner. It's not you figuring out everything. It's not your vendors figuring out everything. There's a combination of the work that needs to happen. And the more that you can be organized with your questions, the more you will get out of it. So first and foremost, with both your website provider, are they already supporting GA4? Do they have a plan to support events for GA4? What is that plan? And also, are they open to the fact that you want to be able to run your own analytics and GA4 in parallel?
Yeah, Colleen, I'm going to stop you here. This is a big one. Talk to your vendors now, and as you move to the next screen about what else you should be talking to them about. It's important to ask about the charges and the fees. What does it mean? Will they simply slap the code up there? Will they be passing events? Will they be giving information? I will tell you, our Synchro websites through Ansira, we do not charge for Google Analytics 4. In fact, all of our reporting is based in Google. It's important. Have these conversations, make sure that something hasn't changed that you're unaware of, and make sure you're going to be able to control your data moving forward. So these are important. I know we've said it over and over, but every time we say it, we hear somebody say, thank you. I got to remember to have that conversation.
Yep. And they won't have everything figured out. We're still getting into the weeds now. All these vendors are figuring out the pieces, how to make it happen, doing the testing. I get emails every day about it. So we're still figuring some of the pieces out, but they should be able to verbalize what their plan is to have you ready by July 1st. Second to being ready to July 1st in those conversations is that you get to figure out what type of events are you going to use. And when we talk about events, and I love that Erin put this in here because she says dumb it down, but it's like we just plain speak. An event indicates that a human or something interacted with the website. So we're talking about a page view, a photo click, an inventory search, a playing with the payment calculator, whatever those things are, that is what we're talking about with events. And in GA4, since it is event-based, you're going to need to have a source for your events. And I've listed out kind of the three main ones here and what I consider pros and cons. So your website provider is going to know their website best. So they're going to have other events and things that are unique to their system, which is a great way to approach it. There is also the ASC, the Automotive Standards Council. And if that's not what it is, don't tell Mr. Pash that I messed that up because I'm involved in all of it and I should know better. But that is what is really an agnostic solution. Brian's in a unique place to able to bring together all the website providers, all the major vendors, and they have agreed to a event organization, the types of events that could work on any website provider with any advertising vendor and going through that. So this is great for groups getting into some of those basics, wanting to understand. It's a great way to be able to do that. There is also the option of what I say, a third-party vendor or agency, being able to have somebody come in, do a custom Google Tag Manager for you. There will be costs associated in supporting that, but it is also an option. Whatever your kind of source of event option is, you should be picking one. If it's going to be ASC, go in with ASC, but if you have ASC and website provider and a vendor wants to do a GTM, you're going to get a lot of noise within your data and not have that one source of truth you really want to look for.
Yeah, we talked to a dealer last week up in Canada who had, I think he said 150 events or something flowing through, and he wasn't even sure where they were coming from or what they're doing. That's the noise you're talking about, right?
Exactly. Like this is a chance for all of us to have new data and start off as clean as possible. So you want to make sure you're honing into what is going to be the best source of events to help you make the right decisions.
Perfect. So I think everybody's all on board with the hard conversions you have here on the left. You know, we want to know leads, phone calls, digital retailing. But these engagement events on the right, we have to start thinking this way. We have to remember, and those of you here on the webinar, I'm probably preaching to the choir. You know this. This is important. But we have to get everybody in the dealership, the dealer principal, when we're looking at success from our analytics to look at these. So talk us through some of these events and how they impact us.
Yeah. And to level set for everybody, the research says that there are 24 different touch points before somebody buys a car. So in that funnel, in that path, in that road, in that bad analogy that somebody used at one point, there are 24 different actions somebody's going to do before they make the choice to buy the car. 19 of those 24 actions are going to be digital. So people are not just visiting your website once, finding a car, making the phone call, submitting the lead. They're researching, they're going in between, they're looking at it. It's much more complex. So that's going to mean that all these type of engagement metrics need to be followed, because somebody's going to be coming in and looking at all those photos, making sure that they're seeing every sort of dealer photo. The data I was looking at last night that said dealers with between 16 and 20 photos on a vehicle saw the most engagement. And so we know that engagement is a great indicator that it's going to sell. And the bigger idea behind talking about all these engagement metrics is that you need to be able to know what part of your digital strategy is influencing a sale. We have to move beyond the kind of closed loop or direct attribution. And you've got to be able to say, and though I know that there are 19 digital touch points, what in my digital strategy is influencing making those touch points happen? Am I getting photo clicks when I run new model advertising? Am I getting engagement on a vehicle detail from my vehicle listing ads? All of those pieces are now coming together. And that's when Erin talks about the engagement. We have to start looking at it holistically and saying, where am I influencing a shopper, and starting to use when a vehicle falls off the website as that indication of a sale, and looking at your digital strategy from there.
Right. It's more than the sale. I mean, here, we're all here to sell cars, obviously. But what gets us there? It can't just be one touch attribution. You can't say lead, sale. You can't ask your customers what brought you in and have them say Auto Trader or your website. It's not the only touch point. So how can we get more information? Events are one way, page views another, right?
Yes. And this is where you can start to, I love GA4 because you can have some fun with it. So every page view in Google Analytics is going to be an event in and of itself, but you can start to customize events in very different ways. So for example, you can build a page view event for only new vehicle views. So anytime somebody looks at only a new vehicle, you would get an event for that. Or anytime somebody looks at a vehicle, gets to a vehicle detail page and clicks on 3 photos, you can make an event that says, tell me every time that happens. And then once you have made some of those more unique events, you can start to judge the effectiveness of what we just talked about based off of that. If I'm running new model campaigns, I want to know it's driving new model activity. And GA4 lets us do this in a way that universal Google Analytics doesn't now. So I would push everybody as we're working towards this, start thinking about what are different combinations and unique things on my website that I want to easily be able to count. So it's things like your model showroom pages. Everybody hates the OEM pages, but it would be good to know if somebody's looking at them easily and giving you an indication of their interest if you don't have something in stock. Or it's all your service and parts pages. There's all the different ways. Like, I could talk all hour about different combinations of what you could do, but it's doing that planning and thinking about it now will help in the future make sure that you're organized within GA4.
Okay, so I think you're only allowed a certain, okay, here it is. Yeah, so talk us through these numbers because some of this stuff is pretty in the weeds. So what's the most important for us to set up?
It is making sure that you have both hard conversions and limiting that to 5. Because if people have more than 5 ways to reach out to you, all the data says they won't do it and they're going to freak out and run away. So we want to limit, and then we want to limit our engagement conversions to things like counting inventory searches, photo clicks, digital retailing engagement. Most people are using your digital retailing tool as a fancy payment calculator anyway. So you should have events in there to understand what they're working, what they're doing within that tool. So it's saying if my conversion and like it's submitting a lead is the most important, what are the events that happen right before somebody submits a lead that I want to know? Those become your engagement type of conversions. And then you think about page views, and then you think about, I always want to include some if like your vendor says you have to do X, Y, and Z, or your DP needs to know whatever random page he's in love with and before you can do anything else. There's always different custom combination of events that you want to have for conversions. But the real thing, if you take away nothing else, leads and then counting the actions right before the lead as those engagement and the important ones.
Yeah, so use the lists on the previous 2 slides to help guide you as you're building this. And that should set you on the right foot. But a lot has changed in GA4. So I think some people get in there and go, hey, what the heck happened to this? So you got a few slides on what happened to. So first is views, right?
We're going to just, and we're pulling the Band-Aid off of this because we got to, it's not going away. And as of today, it's not coming back. I say that because this is Google's world and we're just living in it. And Google could say something tomorrow and everything I'm telling you is not happening. But this is what the tea leaves say. Views are no more. There is now one view for each stream or website you're setting up. So historically, if you were making a view for Edmunds, a view for cars, a view for your SEO vendor, a view for your advertising vendor, now everybody gets to work out of one view and one set of conversions. That's why I started off talking about making sure you know what your leads are, your hard conversions, and the things right before, because you all get to now be the one driving the conversation and telling vendors, these are the most important things. These are the second most important things. This is what I will be judging any digital activity on. You get to be the one driving all of that conversation and understanding how to hold those vendors accountable.
So the next one, what happened to filters? This bummed a lot of people out last week when you presented this, specifically the IP address. So while I do want you to talk about what the can't, I really want you to talk about what to do with this domain filter. So you can't stop showing the salespeople who are on your website on the showroom floor. That's right. Can't do that.
And this is, as of the 18th of January, whenever you listen to this, the filtering ability is not parity to universal analytics. You can't do browser, you can't do location, you can't filter out by IP address. You can only filter out by domain or host name. And so if you had a filter, I think it was maybe 2 years ago, there was a bunch of SEO junk URLs that were putting in ghost spam. You can add those filters back in. But a lot of the filters we're used to doing, like internal traffic at the dealership, no longer exist in GA4. They have said, Google has told me they are trying to bring back parity and hope to have it by July. But I am paranoid enough that I will believe it when I see it. Because it's been so long since they've noticed it.
So Jocelyn has a question. So does this stop vendors from the bot pages and kind of fudging the analytics with any of this? What impact is this really going to have other than that showroom traffic IP address?
The biggest thing is going to be internal traffic, because there are ways, Google has ways to say they can do internal traffic, but none of the Google Analytics for internal traffic tools are meant for us. Just, I'm telling you now, like the TikTok says, this is not for you. Internal traffic filtering is not for dealers.
Right. And Lisa makes a point. Your traffic probably will take a big jump when you are looking at GA4 versus Universal, right?
Yes. And so all of you, because you all are my rock stars and have in Universal a filtered view, what you want to look at is you're in Universal, your filtered view now and an unfiltered view now. And that will kind of give you what that jump should be. And understanding that, yeah, it's going to let most of the bot stuff is still getting filtered out by the Google bot, but not everything is. And we're just going to have to deal with it until Google gives us the filtering back.
Okay. And one more question from Amy. Landon, I see yours. I'm going to keep it. But what about the comply auto stuff that we're going to have on the website? If the person doesn't click accept, will all that tracking stop? Or do we have to find a workaround, anything like that we need to worry about?
First off, yes, that is actually something that GA4 does with consent mode, horribly named. Tula does allow. So if you're trying to have your opt-in, opt-out consumer privacy talk to your GA4, you want to look at consent mode because it's something that has to be configured. I will also tell you right now, if you're in California, you're probably going to have to do that manually because California is ahead of the rest of the world. It's not something that all of the website providers have done right now, but will soon. But consent mode is what you need to look at for that.
I'm going to put this down as we need to talk about this more on different webinars. Amy, thank you for that question. Let's move forward. What to do next on GA4 before we get into some other fun data stuff?
Yeah. So first off, you need to be building out that list of what all my conversions are and all my digital activity. Spoiler alert, the next section we're going to do will give you the cheat sheet on how to build that list that anybody could do. And then I want everybody to think about in Google Analytics now, if you could only look at 5 pieces of data, what would those be? And then make sure you can find all of those pieces in GA4. And then finally, making sure that like all your tools, your chat tool, your DR tool has a GA4 plan, because if they're not going to support GA4 or they're not going to have something, it might be time to find a new vendor, and you want to start having those conversations now and not in June when everybody else is going to be having those conversations.
Absolutely. And your Synchro website absolutely has a plan, and we are here for you. So if you are not with us for websites, what the heck are you doing? Let's have that conversation. All right. So next, digital data 101. Lots of stuff here. We talked about it earlier. Defining success. Yes, a sale is a success, but there's other things to consider. I'm so glad you put this slide in. Customer data platform. I'm interested. Who's heard this? It's a new buzzword in automotive. You know, it's been around. It's something that other companies and other industries really look at. But for auto, it's new. So give us the starting definition and what we need to know.
Yes, and this is a more passion project of Erin and I. Everybody's running around telling dealers they need a customer data platform. Nobody's telling anybody what a customer data platform actually is and isn't. So Erin and I are here just to break it down because, like, hey, that's great. You can throw around fancy words. What does it mean?
Reminds me of when digital retailing started, and it took about 6 months for anybody to actually say what that meant. That's where we're at right now.
So what this is that a customer data platform is an additional software that you have that is going to pull in data from all the different places. And the screenshot here gives you a good list of where to start with. It's pulling in CRM, it's pulling in DMS, it's pulling in advertising upstream, it's pulling in website metrics, it's pulling in things from F&I. All the activity comes in to create that one view of your customer. But your CRM is not a customer data platform. Your CRM is a source into a customer data platform. Your CRM, as you all know, is only as good as the information you put in it. So it is not that one place to really get the holistic look at your customers, because I know y'all got some people who be putting junk into your CRM, and junk in is junk out. Your DMS as well is not your customer data platform. Your DMS is focused on financials and sales, and once again, you're a source into a customer data platform, but it is not a customer data platform. And then finally, Google Analytics is not a customer data platform. That is a source as well, and you will be able to do some customer matching based off of a session ID, a user ID, whatever gets assigned. But the reality of your website data is that in the privacy world, there's going to be so much information that can tell you your influence and the success of an influence that won't show up in a customer data platform. I think customer data platforms are great, but I just want everybody to know it's not what you think it is sometimes.
No, and I'm glad we talked about this, and, we're going to move forward with some other content. So, this is all on CDP for right now. And I think that's the level set is, you should be learning about this and listening to this. BDC managers, marketing managers, I know you have fought the data link between CRM and DMS matching up for years. I can remember the manual effort I had to do to match everything as a BDC director. So be thinking about it, listen. Brian Pash is posting a lot of very good stuff on this. More to come, but it is something that I think would benefit us all. But in the interim, we got data.
We got a cheat sheet.
Vendors. Right. So what do we do now?
Yes. So this is for everybody who might be half listening to this or they're recording. Come back in because this is going to be the good stuff. If you're setting up for a customer data platform, if you're just trying to get all your digital data organized and figuring out where the heck you're spending money, you need to build one master list of what you're doing on your website, this is just like your 0 hour, let's just get everything organized and build a master list of my vendors. So where we start off is being able to say, listing out every vendor you have on your website or every vendor you interact with. So like you have your listing on AutoTrader, you have your listing on cars.com, you have your listing on whatever random service thing you're now involved in or EV, all those different things. List out what the vendor is, who the vendor is, and what you're getting from them at the start.
And most of you probably have this. You probably have step 2. Your accounts payable clerk probably forces this on you, but make sure you've gone through it. Make sure you're actually looking at everything you're paying for. Adding these costs is important, but Colleen, I think a lot of Gold Star members here probably have these too, right?
You've got these two. So now let's push it to the next level. Defining the strategy of each of the items. And what I mean by that, you should be able to, in 1 to 2 sentences, say what the purpose or strategy for each of these tool is. You see in these examples that Erin put in there for me because she knows I'm never good at doing that. Tracy's Trade-In, it allows users to get instant trade-in value on their vehicles. My AutoTrader listing is the upgraded listing for branding. My marketing is we're focusing on the new models in stock. If you cannot list out what the item or what the strategy is for that tool in 2 sentences or under, you really should be able to do it in 1. It is time to get rid of that tool because it's too complicated. And if you can't explain what it is, your customers are not using it.
Yeah, it's a fun exercise. Let me tell you, an acceptable strategy is not because my general manager signed the contract and handed me the vendor agreement. That's not the strategy. So this is a good exercise for your leadership team as well, because even though it's on your website, it's a showroom strategy as well. How are we transitioning, especially with digital retailing tools? It affects everybody. Amy wants to know, how granular should we be with that? Some vendors do multiple things. So maybe should we break out the costs? So let's say you're using one vendor for digital retailing and chat. I'm going to assume there's line items for that. Should we get that granular in this?
Yeah, I would say in that aspect, I would, but you don't want to go break it down so much to say this campaign and advertising costs this much and this campaign and advertising costs this much. So you can get granular to say, like, this is the chat tool, this is the cost for chat, this is the cost for digital retailing. if you're using, for example, Carnell for both of those. Being able to do that,
Yeah.
totally good. But you don't want to get stuck in the minutia of doing out line items for everything.
Yeah, and this isn't designed to add work to your plate. This should be a pretty quick exercise. So, follow your heart, measure with your heart, as they say when you're baking. And yes, so not too much. So even though you've defined the strategy, though, with these vendors, I know you've got this, but tagging. I want you to talk about this and how this falls into the next piece.
This, like account ownership, is the hill that Erin and I will die on, because we see it every day where tagging is messed up. I have 2 emails already today where somebody had messed up tagging. You want to make sure that you're looking at your source and your medium. Your source is where it's coming from, the particular thing, like Facebook, Google, AutoTrader. Your medium, and this is really good, is how it got there. Paid search, referral. So you'd have AutoTrader and referral. CPC, or like Facebook, Google, and paid social, paid search. That's how you want to put those 2 things together. This is where you're going to need to really work with vendors to make sure everybody is on board with your UTM tagging. And then also, you want to start pushing people to use the campaign level of tagging. Google Analytics 4 will do a lot with campaign level. So the more vendors that are using source, medium, and campaign, the more granular, like we were just talking about, you can get in the, is it working? Is it influencing? Are we getting something out of it?
Yeah. Art wants to know, does GA4 have source reporting?
Yes, GA4 does have source reporting. You can do source, medium, or source, medium combined. And it lives in the session base of it. So it's a last touch type of attribution for the source in GA4, but I promise it's there.
Awesome. And then Tracy, I think, just had a comment. Some states allow you to disclaim on a form on the website. When the client clicks the form, they're consenting to be contacted by phone, text, or email. So some of that compliance stuff that we've talked about, that's a good note. So check with your vendors. Anything you can do to auto opt-in or auto consent, I think is really valuable.
But yes, thank you, Tracy. That's a very good. And you also know, my Texas and California friends know that your state has more fun than other people right now. And so always be very aware about the state and when it goes for that. Okay, so we put in our strategy. Now we're going to go pull in a little bit of data. And I say we've got both conversions and assisted conversions because we're thinking about universal analytics. But this could also be both in hard conversions and engagement events, to think about it in GA4. Because you want to know when your AutoTrader ad is driving in leads, but you also want to know when your AutoTrader ad is driving in inventory searches. Because if your AutoTrader ad is really the strategy of branded marketing, it shouldn't be driving leads, but it should be driving page views and inventory searches. And they should be getting in to look at vehicles. Or let's say Margie's marketing, which, by the way, one of my best girlfriends is named Margie, and she loves the fact that I use her name in it because it's an old lady name. Love every Margie, but it's 100% an old lady name and doesn't sound like a digital agency. That's why I use that one. Makes me giggle every time. But if Margie's out there running new model advertising, you want to make sure that the vehicles getting activity are new model ones. And so we're looking at photos and they're looking at those page views. So you want to look at your conversions and then your engagement and total all of them up. You can get really granular once you start working at this and like figuring out by model. But at the start, you want to do just a basic understanding of my trade-in form got me this many conversions, this much engagement.
This slide is important because I think up till now, there's a lot of people on the webinar saying, yeah, I have my ROI calculator, I do this. We cannot just look at sales anymore. We've got to look at conversions. When you look at a tool like AutoTrader, for example, I remember being in the dealership and the hard conversions, the leads that I would get would be minimal, but we knew the impact it was having, and especially when you look in the analytics. So when we only look at sales or leads or hard conversions, it makes it really difficult to track the impact. I can only imagine some of the conversations many of you have had with dealer principal, with the general manager saying, no, this tool is working, but they are saying, well, I don't have any leads. So this is why this exercise is so important, to help you calculate that true ROI. So I think you've got a new equation for us. You know, my daughter's in 5th grade math, so I'm pretty up to speed on the newest algebra. But okay, so tell us now how we should be calculating.
I didn't do new math at all in grade school, so I'm old school like that. But this is looking at the idea about how we calculate our cost per opportunity. And also, when you think about engagement, you can start to calculate your cost per engagement. It's costing you X amount to get the photo, 6 photo clicks or whatever. But this is where you can expand the idea of ROI to what Erin just said. It's no longer about that direct return on investment, but how much is it costing me to get that opportunity or to get that engagement? Because your website will not help at all for your in-store process. So you want to start thinking about what's the cost per opportunity, and then what in the in-store process is making the close rate increase, decrease, and putting the picture together that way.
Absolutely. Look at that full picture, because if something is driving that traffic and then we're just not closing those deals, we do absolutely have to revisit it, because we're not just here for traffic. It's the entire picture. So you did the math here. So take us through this. 12,000 is that marketing spend, right?
Yes. And what I did, I picked a random, thinking about budgets I know for smaller dealerships, saying you're spending overall 12 grand. This is what you got in hard conversions, engagement type of events. And now I'm able to say I'm paying $37 for an opportunity, which is getting that idea about your digital opportunities in the same language of people are used to paying X amount for a lead. Now you can start to say, I'm paying X amount for an opportunity, and put the digital activity that is not directly associated with the lead in the same language everybody at the dealership is used to.
All right, so lots of great stuff. We've now given everybody a lot of homework, which is one of my favorites, but we always want to make sure you've got the resources. So here you've got 2 links. I'll make sure this gets sent out as well in the follow-up email later today. UTM builder tool, so let's go back to that. But the second is that vendor tracking template that you just walked everyone through, right?
Yep. I want it to be as easy as possible, and I love to be able to be helpful and give away the free things. So this is an UTM tool you can make a copy of, or the template to do that vendor tracking that I just walked everybody through. And you can keep using it, put it in your Google Sheets, because you all have your Google account to manage everything, and then run everything through there. Make copies of it, claim it as your own. I don't care. I just want people to be working with data.
All right, so fantastic. We've got about 20 more minutes, and we're going to talk local search, but I think we're going to have time for Q&A at the end. So I'll encourage everyone to be adding your questions that I can hold on anything we've talked about, any data stuff. But now, Google My Business. Oh, it says Google My Business.
I know.
Don't we have to call it something different? Ugh.
If you think
what do we
that
call
Google Business Profile is confusing to you, I still get confused and call it Google My Business every once in a while. So don't worry. We're all figuring it out. I even should have caught that, and I didn't. So it's on all of us. Before we get into those specifics, one of the, and I know I've talked about this in at least 3 other webinars, still one of the most common questions I get is, what's the difference between vehicle listing ads and vehicle listings? And what that is that this is the new advertising format Google is doing, where you can put your inventory feed up there. This is the organic placement that Google is doing, where you can work with a provider and have them submit your inventory feed to Google. Little just table to call out what we like, what differences between the two. As we see, both of them allow for UTM tagging, so you can track it. On your vehicle listing ads, they have to be set up first in Merchant Center. And after you set it up in Merchant Center, then you have to have your advertising provider connect it to a campaign in Google Ads in order to get those ads to display. So the same way they would use an extension for call, you would use the text links extension, whatever the newest ones are. this becomes a extension for shopping ads within Google. So you have to do all that merchant center work and have advertising providers set it up in order to start showing in there. Meanwhile, for your organic vehicle listings, you just have to be working with one of the providers who will submit your inventory feed to Google, and then it will show up. Some providers are going to charge money to do the inventory feed. Some providers have made it part of their overall package. That's going to be between you and the provider, but you will need one of the preferred providers to send the inventory feed in order to get the organic listing, and then that's all you have to do for that.
So George wants to know, what's the relationship between vehicle listing ads and GBP, or is there one?
There's not, only the fact that every day I get an email asking why the vehicle listing ad up here, people assume it's connected to cars for sale as well, because it used to be cars for sale. There's really no relationship between the two, but because they look so similar and pretty much have the same name, there's still a lot of confusion about how do I get my cars to show up here and how do I get my cars to show up here.
Right. Right. Okay. So with the vehicle listings in the blue,
yes,
are analytics on those both in Google Analytics and the GBP dashboard, or just one?
Just the clicks are in the in your Google Analytics. Your provider should be able to provide some impression data, but the thing with the cars for sale is there's really not a whole lot of analytics. Because Google, if they can't anonymize the data, they won't report on it. And 95% of vehicle listing data I see is anonymized. I didn't say that right. We're just going to keep running with that kind of day because there's not meeting the privacy threshold. So like, yeah, you can get impressions on it, but they're not very good because of privacy and fun stuff like that.
Okay. And Tracy has a good note. Keep in mind with VLAs, on the left, you might show up due to your inventory on like Auto Trader or Cars or Car Gurus, and you're competing with their deep pockets. So the organic seems better. It's free. We do get a question a lot. We are a provider. This is included in most of our website packages. We will send the inventory through, but we'll get a call every once in a while and say, somebody else is sending it. I don't know who it is. How do I tell who's sending the feed where? Because I need to update it. You've got that here.
Yes. So first off, everybody has seen that Google in the last month or so forced all of us to start managing our Google business profile in the search results. It's lame. I don't like it, but I have to get over it too, just like everybody else doesn't like when Google makes stupid changes. I don't like this change at all. It's exhausting, but this is Google's world and we just have to figure out how to live in it. So how do we live in it?
As usual. Right.
When you are signed in to your master Google account, because I know y'all have one, or whatever account is logged in or is managing your Google business profile, you're just going to search for your dealership name, and this whole edit screen will show up right here. Vehicle listings is going to be the place where you will see all the providers, and it will also allow you to select your provider or allow Google to automatically select your provider. I have seen people select the automatic provider as OEMs do takeovers and things like that. So just be aware of who is sending in that feed so you know if there's an issue who you have to go to for that.
Right. Other changes, though, to the dashboard or to how do we manage it? And I know you've got several listed out here.
Yes. To just reiterate on what I talked about, I'm logged into the account that manages the Google business profile, done the search for the dealership name, and now at the top of the search results, you should see all of your different pieces. You're the only one who can see this because I manage the profile. So that is how you get all of this. This is where you're making your posts. You need to edit your profile. You need to do anything. It all lives right here. It's lame.
So, Colleen, Dale wants to know if vehicle listings there on the previous slide isn't an option, isn't one of those lists, that's probably an issue, or does it only mean that nothing's being fed?
If vehicle listings is not here, it means nothing is being fed and you have to reach out to Google to get the option turned on. So the Google Business
Okay.
Profile support would be the right way to do that.
All right. I'll pull that for you, Dale, and I'll make sure you get that. Perfect.
Yep. Okay. So people, my eagle eyes will know that this means a lot of other things have changed. Your performance metric no longer includes anything about photo engagement, which is just, that's fine. If your photo, yeah, I'd like to know that, but whatever, Google. Always to be aware, they will tell you how many calls occurred, but those are calls when somebody clicked on your Google business profile and hit the call the dealership button and completed the call that way. So let me get here. They hit this call button, it went to their phone and they completed the number and did all of that. That will show up as a call. It's going to be a subset of your overall calls that occur. It's not going to be, so it's going to be a good piece to know, but it's a subset of all the phone calls you're getting for it. This driving directions change is a bummer, but I understand because like privacy and stuff, historically, you used to be able to know where the person was when they asked for driving directions. Google took that out. So you can know how many people ask, you just don't get to know where they are. And like,
yeah,
I understand.
That's a little creepy. Yeah, that's a little creepy.
I understand.
All right. We'll give you a pass on that one, Google. All right.
Yeah. Your posts are now there under add an update. And this is the bug that we were chatting with last week, and I got confirmation from Google. Was yesterday Tuesday? I don't actually remember anymore. Got confirmation that this is a bug and they are going to be looking at it. But in the new feature, if you're trying to update some of like the appointment links and other links on your sales, it doesn't show up there. And Google's now aware about that and they're working on it. Who knows when they'll fix it, but we were able to get that escalated to Google. So thanks to my friends last week who pointed that out to me.
Yes. They were so frustrated that they couldn't change. And usually, I'm telling you, if you're trying to do something and the frustration level hits, probably not you. So hang in there. Last slide here before we get to some of our resources, but perform a local search audit. So we get questions on this all the time. I think back 10 years. Is it okay to have different phone numbers? Is it okay to have my business be the auto group on one and just the Nissan or the Chevy store in another? So you're saying it needs to be the same across everywhere.
Yeah. You want to have a local phone number. It can be a local tracking number so that you can use that for reporting to understand how many overall like organic phone calls you're getting. But you should really have the same information across all these different places. You shouldn't have different phone numbers. You shouldn't have tweaks to the address. Everything should just be the same. And the other reason really why I call this out is that despite all the management I know you all are doing of this, some AI has come in the last 3 months and updated something to what you don't like. So it's just good to be aware and confirming that you have all the data correct.
Yeah. Yeah. Art says Apple Maps should be added. Bing should be added. Listen, we could add about 1 billion places to this. Google yourself, see what shows up on page 1. There's tons of tools that can help you with this. But Landon loves this advice. At any dealership he works with, you'd be amazed how many times phone numbers, location tag wrong. So this is, again, another kind of reset. You might have done this in the past. Stuff gets updated all the time. You've got it here in the red box where sometimes there's a third-party service who gets in there and messes with your stuff, right?
And don't get me wrong, I love my OEMs and I love my third parties and I love the community we all have together. But sometimes the OEM data may not be the most correct data you want. And I think actually to my Classic Chevrolet friends, because this is the best example, technically their business name is Classic Chevrolet Grapevine, but they do business as Classic Chevy or Classic Chevrolet. So we need the ability to make sure that a third-party OEM service that might be pushing out the official business name is pushing the right information. So if you're ever in a place where you can't figure out where that's coming from, there are good odds that the OEM is doing a directory push to try to help manage for the lower third, and all my high performers are caught in that.
Awesome. Lots of good stuff. I've got a few questions saved here, so hang with us. I mentioned at the top of the webinar we will be in Dallas during NADA. We are so excited. We have an exclusive speakeasy, Run It Out. It's called the Crescent Club, and we've got a few fantastic ways to connect with Colleen, myself, and our team of experts. Speaking of experts, one of the events is a breakfast with the experts. We've mentioned his name a few times. Brian Pash will be joining us, Todd Caputo, Alex Snyder, Seth Levin from Grub. So it's going to have a retail focus, lots of fantastic conversation. Have breakfast, start your day with us before heading to the convention. We've got a shuttle that'll take you there, lots of fun stuff. It wouldn't be NADA without some cocktails. So we're having a cocktail event as well on Friday the 27th. That's going to be a fun night. And then, hey, one-on-one demos. Colleen's talked a lot about Google Analytics. You can meet with us. We'll look at your stuff. We'll look at your website. We'll show you some of the fantastic things that Ansira Secro has to offer. So use these QR codes. If you told us you're coming to NADA, I might reach out because, again, I want to see you in person. We talked some other reasons.
I'm going to make it clear. If you want to book a one-on-one demo, talk Google Analytics, have me look at your Google Analytics, tell you where you need. I live to tell people what to do all day. So that last QR code, you can book a one-on-one time with me to get a demo of all of our reporting, all of our analytics, and a little Google Whisperer time.
Yes, absolutely. Managing your calendar has become a full-time job. So thank you for keeping me busy. How else can we help? For those of you not attending NADA, don't worry. We're always here. On the next slide, we still have all our resources at syncrodigital.com. We are so excited as we transition to officially Ansira. You know, this will be slow moving on all the resources, but all Colleen's Google Whisperer stuff, our blog, past webinars, some white papers, playbooks, everything available. Share this with your team. Share this with your 20 groups. The more, the merrier. Next month's webinar, you will not be with us. I think I'm allowed to say it, but if I'm not, don't tell anybody. I'm really excited. We're going to be joined by Pinterest next month. So fantastic Pinterest auto stuff, what you should be doing, how to take advantage of that. It's going to be really great. So make sure you register ahead of time, but more to come. I'll make sure I email you all that info. All right. So good note. Anthony said that's a great list of folks coming to our breakfast at with the experts. I'm really excited for it. Let's see. I want to go to some questions here. George wants to back to VLAs. Will optimizing your GBP page have any impact on the efficacy of those VLAs? Similar to how the old quality score metric was used in SEM.
Well, technically, Google will say everything influences it. No. It still lives within two separate realms, so that your optimization on your Google business profile is really just going to help more in the organic, but it's also going to help more showing on the map. More and more that as people do searches, as you all have seen this, if your review says something, if a product mentions a certain type of oil and somebody searches for the Chevy oil, that your business profile will show up. So they are still two separate entities. Your GBP optimization is really and truly going to be about everything related to all the new places Google will show the map results and how you get in there.
Yeah, and I mean, hey, update your GBP and optimize that because you just should. But, you know, it's important to understand what's going to impact. You're not going to suddenly see a golden, shoot to the top. Steve actually says self-audit makes a lot of sense. It's important to consider and understand the OEM programs that might impact the listing. So we mentioned it a lot. You know, the OEMs aren't out to get us. This is designed to help. We talked about this last week. A lot of their programs are designed for the unengaged dealer. So that dealer who's not updating their GBP or not making sure their phone numbers is right, that's what they're doing. So you all are engaged. It's why you're here. Understand those programs, talk to your field team. Ford has fantastic DPCs out in the field. GM has those wonderful DDPMs. Every to their Shift Digital reps. You have resources. Our Nissan digital marketing consultants, shout out to them. Use your resources, understand those programs. That is a great tip, Steve. Let's see. Nick says, does Google suppress vehicles with photo overlays on VLAs still?
Yes. So Nick, Gold Star, great question. Forgot to talk about that. So both on vehicle listing ads and on the vehicle listings, if you have too much of an overlay in your photos, Google will suppress that or pick another random photo which you have no control over. There is a way in most inventory providers, and I say that I know Chrome will let us do it. I don't know outside of Chrome, the Chrome feed, how we get that. You can say like, so use this photo, and it will take the second or third photo. So you have the ability to do that. But if your overlay is too big, or it has your phone number, it's claiming best dealership west of the Mississippi or whatever, Google never wants to feel like they're endorsing somebody, which is why they do the suppression. They've just pretty much said, if you have an overlay, we're probably going to end up suppressing it.
Yeah, and it's why it's important to go in the way you show to find out who is sending your inventory, because that overlay may be added somewhere else, and maybe you have a different option for getting that inventory sent for vehicle listings. So Yuli wants to know, can I change my data provider for vehicle listings? And it's in that you showed. I don't know if you want to go back a few slides.
I'm going to go on back because you can. So if you were to click on the vehicle listings, it will give you a pop-up to tell you who the provider is, who the backup provider is, and all of the options for providers where you can go in and change that.
Awesome. Anthony wants to know, have the inventory vendor, I think it's a note, have the inventory vendor you use remove the overlays and send one feed that's sanitized? Absolutely.
There we go.
I mean,
yes, thank
shoot
you.
For the stars. Ask for it all. Okay, so Sam, I see your question. It's I think it's specific to you, so I'm going to reach out to you after this later today. Colleen, that's all the questions as usual. I'm so proud of us that we are right on time. Thank you to everybody who joined us. I know. Reach out. You've got all the resources. I will make sure you get these slides later today. Thanks so much, and I will see those of you in Dallas next week, and the rest of you, we'll see you later.